Hello, so welcome to episode 110 with Teh Tarik with Walid, and it's really special. I say that all the time, but I mean it, I really mean it. We have, the first time ever, I have a political office holder, a sitting political office holder, Minister of State, Madam Rahayu Mahzam. Thank you so much, MOS Rahayu. I will never forget this act of kindness. You're appearing on my show. As a political office holder. So let's get to it. So MOS, we've known each other for a while since you've been in politics. Now we've been on panels together. I've moderated panels with you. When you were promoted to MOS, I publicly celebrated it because I do like you a lot. And that's a very long-winded way of starting this and saying that I apologize in advance for some potentially difficult questions.
It's nothing true, is it?
Nothing personal at all. So let's get to it. So the first one is, well, I guess I said nothing personal, but this one is a bit personal to me in the sense that it involves a friend. So a few months ago, you said that you were going to take legal action against Donald Low. And Donald Low, full disclosure, is a friend of mine. He's an academic who's been on Teh Tarik as well. So do you think, moving forward, that is the kind of approach that the government would take, or do you think that increases self-censorship in Singapore, especially amongst young people? What is your sense? What is your reasoning?
Well, you really jumped straight into it. But first, let me just also thank you for this opportunity and finally having a Teh Tarik.
Yes.
I wanted to just share that the first time you asked for Teh Tarik, I really thought you wanted to belanja Teh Tarik. So I didn't know then. That was many years ago. And yes, congratulations on this 110th episode. I think that this is a great opportunity to ask some of the difficult questions, right? And to then get some clarification. I want to kind of zoom out back on this topic and matter because it is a specific issue, but I think when we speak about censorship and self-censorship, we've got to understand the context of what we're discussing. It is really about engagement and conversations in the public space, and in particular on the online space. So personally, if you ask me, I am one who advocates open conversations and discussion. I think it is important for a society to grow if they are able to hear different views. But for that space to be a space that is safe, that is meaningful, you do need to have some rules of engagement or guardrails of sorts, societal norms that puts things in a certain order so that you actually give true liberty for people to give their views and opinions. I say this because in that particular instance, a line was crossed. There were aspersions towards the conduct I did, and that was not fair given the particular context. I was limited in my ability to fully respond because of sub judice, but more than anything, actually there were already articles or comments on it which I left, right? But when it was suggested that the conduct was not becoming, and so that's where I needed to try and draw the line. And to be complete about the circumstance, he understood, he apologized, and we moved on from there.
Right.
And I didn't actually proceed, but there needed to have been a firm position taken because of that circumstance. So that was in that particular instance. So moving back to my point about this point you raised about self-censorship, I think it's not so much censorship as it is to have proper decorum and responsibility as to what you say or do. Because if people don't do that, then you're going to get a platform or a society where people just throw things and say anything they want without regard to whether it's true, it's correct, it's accurate, and the context and the harm it can cause to others. Because there's a Malay peribahasa, paruh hanyut boleh tarik balik. Telajak kata tak boleh tarik lagi. I'm skewing it a bit, but the point is that there's great harm that can be caused if words are thrown out, and especially in the online space, you're very familiar. It can really go viral, unravel. So we need those guardrails. We need some sort of principles so that you can truly engage. And I would really like people to feel safe in that space, but they also need to exercise responsibility, decorum, and this sort of constructive approach to discussions.
So that would be the last resort for you, like
Yes.
that would be okay.
Personally, I struggled with
Right.
putting that out. I mean, people who
Okay.
know me would say
Exactly.
Right.
I was thinking like, we've butted heads a few times. Like
not my style, right?
you've always been kind to me, so I just wanted to put it out there. Yeah. By the way, MOS also was showing off a little bit with her Malay. Like she's one of the, she was a Malay debater. Her Malay is top notch. Yeah. So I'm glad we discussed that, and hopefully moving forward also that I understand that sometimes the government feels they have to do that, but hopefully it's the very few times, right? And that's your personal aspiration as well, right? That is, we have fewer of that. And I do agree with this because the online space also, people say all sorts of things. And I know the government cannot respond to everything also. But what if, when I guess do you say, okay, I'm going to call you and then we have a discussion, and when do you personally think, okay, this you've crossed the line and then I'm going to, is it because of an issue or approach?
So actually these are things that we have to properly think through. We also struggle with it in government. The reality is that a lot of attention and focus is given to situations where there are things that we've asked to take down, right? But there's so many things online that are there giving views contrary to ours that has just been left, right? And it's not because we cannot track it or don't want to track it. It's the fact that we appreciate that it is a space, and if people are just giving their opinion, they are entitled to. But in a lot of the occasions, there are, if we kind of really take it each in turn, right? All the situations really go towards questioning the establishment, casting aspersions on an institution. When you do that, especially with public institutions, you really undo and unravel the good work that they've done, and that affects the integrity of that institution, and that is where we typically take action. So POFMA, for example, that's a favourite topic. Right? I was actually on the select committee when we were debating it. Pritam was there as well, and I think it was a very good exercise of actually understanding the different perspectives locally as well as abroad, and coming to a landing as to what we feel was important. And it was there was consensus that there was necessity for legislation, and we only do that if public interest was affected. And in the occasions that we have, we seek legal advice, we go through and actually exercise the powers only when that the points conveyed really would have impact on public interest. But otherwise, the thousands a daily comments that people say about us just are out there for people to consume.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that even you struggled with that, because that's not what you wish to do as well. So thank you. So let's move on. So one of the hot topics now, since the EBRC released its report, is gerrymandering, right? And a lot of people are saying, the boundaries, like Marine Parade Bridal High is shaped so funny, and then even your own GRC, there has been some movement. So what are your thoughts on gerrymandering, and what the opposition has been saying, what online commentators are saying?
The presumption on, or rather the assumption of gerrymandering, or what you're saying when you say there's gerrymandering, is that something is tweaked or done to favour that party, right? But in this case, I think we really have got to look at what the facts are. The reality is that the demographic has changed, and that's something that we can't deny. We see Tengah, we see Pasir Ris Unggul, growing as an estate.
Tampines.
And Tampines. So it's just, it cannot be that it stays the same, right? I mean, that's a fact. And actually, if you look at the map, it's really like everybody has to step one side. You know, it has to be a shift so that there can be a proper allocation. I think many of those whom you've asked say that, right? Because it's kind of a logical principle. So if that is so, then we've got to understand whether there truly is any advantage from that shift. And if you ask me, being one who has been affected by that, I can't truly say it is, right? Because my Jurong GRC has been sort of broken up, right?
So you think it disadvantages you also?
I think it is, there are impact, whether it's good or bad, there's impact to us. We have had worked as a team. My Jurong team and I, after Mr. Taman left, had, rallied together, supported each other, had even had our, discussions and plans as to how we're going to develop the estate. And now, that work, I mean, it's done, no regrets move, but we now have to reconvene, right? And we do. So we were affected as well. So to say that we then had gerrymandered and had an advantage out of that whole exercise, I can't say that it's true for me. I'm not sure. I don't think it's true for the other members of my team or my party. And the truth is, this whole idea already casts doubts on people's mind. And then already you lose the effect of any gerrymandering.
Okay.
What's the
Right.
logic? There's no logic because people are going to. So in a way,
No.
if anything, it is very disadvantageous to us. Like
So-
any move we make
Right.
is assumed to be gerrymandering, and there's no value to that. To
I have a couple of follow-up questions, but you mentioned the Jurong team. Who do you mention? The new members who's going to be contesting?
Well, yeah, you're very good, very clever. That's really not decided. But my original team was Sean and Wu Ming and Yao Chen.
Right.
And so, because Sean and Yao Chen is now his area at least. Again, we don't know what the lineup will be, but those areas were taken out of Jurong.
I am a huge fan of Yao Chen.
Oh yes,
I'm a huge
very
fan.
well
I think
liked, very well loved.
I think he's a good guy. So a follow up on that. So let's say the PAP and the PAP MPs candidates feel disadvantaged. Would you say that the opposition is disadvantaged more just because they don't have enough resources to walk? Because the PAP has walked every ground in Singapore, but the opposition, it's less possible for them to do that. So when boundaries are moved, they feel more disadvantaged.
I would think of it from different perspectives, right? One, I feel that to be fair to our opposition team, they have always been, walking the ground, especially for those who are MPs. They are doing their work very much like all of us, right? So they already have their platforms, they already have their sort of perch to kind of do that engagement. And that is something I feel that is consistent for everyone. Second, they actually then also, in a perverse way, have that advantage of people feeling a sense of underdogs, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, you already get like an extra sort of bonus or favor in their favor. So that's something I feel that maybe we have to think about. And the other thing I would say is also the online space, social media platforms kind of democratizes this for all of us. So regardless of our position or walking around, all of us, I suppose, have an opportunity to campaign as best as we can. And with AI, with technology, that can be multiplied quite significantly. And I'm not sure if we necessarily say, I mean, different parties are different. I do feel that resources of some parties are better than others, and they've actually done very well in terms of their videos, in terms of their product. So I think that remains to be seen. The other thing I would also say is that I feel that if we look at things from the perspective of the people we serve, Singaporeans, the community, and they deserve the best. They deserve teams and advocacy that is meaningful, and I feel that we all have to step up. We all have to learn to do better, and it's something that we owe to the community and the people, to do it with integrity, to do it right, but also to give our all, right, to win their hearts, to really understand their needs. And so I think for that, if we're looking at it from the perspective of the Singaporean, we all should nak tak nak kena buat lah. I mean, we all have to buck up, and if you are here to serve and deliver that service, we all have to strengthen our team and do the job.
You mentioned the walkabouts a lot, right? So yesterday, actually, someone asked me, why is it important nowadays? Like online, you can get more reach. Like this one, you go door to door. I mean, you still do it, but what is the electoral value of it, you think? Do you think your efforts would be better spent, like that marginal value of doing an online video where you can reach hundreds of thousands versus a house visit? If you could only do one, right, the day before election, which one would you do?
Wow, that's a tough question, because I have to confess, I'm a little bit of a dinosaur. I am not the most comfortable and savvy in an online space, and this is all very stressful for me. I love conversations. Like if you had asked me for Teh Tarik and all this, I'd be like, a seat for you. So making that choice would be tough for me. I think for us, at least with the people I've worked with in my team, we do feel the need to have the substance and actually do the real work, and now also have to kind of show for it. So I think it's something that you can't like do without the other, because the work itself is just so important. There's firstly people who may not be clued into some of the platforms, and that's the reality. Algorithms also just swirl us into certain things. So as much as we reach out, there are people we won't be able to reach out to because of the way they consume things online. So there's still that need, and you do need to do the work, because you do need to understand and actually reach out to your people, right? So there's this one whole real dimension, walking the ground, that we have to do. The other thing is that the online space is a bit skewed sometimes, I feel. And one, I said about the algorithm, because you probably will only just see one dimension of it. But consumption also in the online space is very limited. You can't give your full breadth of everything, because people have a very limited attention span. So you need to be very quick, very fast, very sharp, and not everyone is as successful in delivering their message there. So I find it's going to be very hard to achieve. So I feel that you cannot not do both the walking around and the walking around is not just jalan-jalan. It's actually like looking at things, getting it right, giving the help that's needed. And I think we all also have different personalities. I've always felt that we all have a better chance of actually building stronger relations if we do that in person. So we are not going to expect a parkour video from you anytime soon. I masak.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. So the next one, and this is something that I don't know, every guest I've had on, I will ask whatever party, I will ask about Palestine. And I think I just wanted to say first, I think I know the work that you've done on this, so I want to thank you. I think you've been an advocate, so I appreciate that a lot. So this is not about Palestine itself, because I think you have shown where your heart is on that. So this is about, a lot of people are saying, and I do empathize with this, I do sympathize with this, especially younger ones, when they say, we have a lot of grievances, we are feeling a lot of hurt and despair, but we can't do it at the Hong Lim Park. And then when we go to MPS, they say, okay, we cannot discuss this because we discuss bread and butter. So, and then online, then they're afraid to post something because of POFMA, whatever it is. So they have legitimate grievances, but they have very few outlets. And I can empathize with that, especially for younger people, and even older people. You look at what's going on. It's difficult for you not to feel anything, and it's not just hurt. It's despair, and you feel like, I cannot do anything. So I just want to do something. I want to express myself. So, what would you say to that as the government, right? As a member of the government, how could people really express their hurt and the depths of despair? And you speak to more people than I do, so you know that a lot of people are just feeling a level of grief that they've never felt before in their life.
firstly, I want to just also thank you for the work that you do, because I think the advocacy is meaningful, and I do appreciate that you do it constructively. And I also want to acknowledge the pain. The grief is real. I mean, I also remembered myself, in the early days after the incident and watching the videos. And I spoke about algorithm. It's kind of my pet topic, because I do really feel that it messes with our minds.
Yeah.
And I remembered being in a space where I was also consuming on a daily basis, and every other time I would just cry, because it was so it was so painful, and I had to kind of counteract it by actually stopping, watching it, because I consciously knew what was happening. And because, like you say, there was a paralysis of sorts, right? The grief is really troubling, and so I really understand the space people were in and are in every time they consume that. So I personally have always shared also with my team that there needs to be catharsis, there needs to be an avenue for people to express themselves, and I think that's what we have been working towards. In terms of creating the platforms, the dialogues, to I've actually also done my own sort of smaller groups, and in discussion with people who are sort of my own constituents, and many have also expressed this, that if not for the fact that they have this opportunity, how are they going to talk and share about it? So I appreciate that, but I think we have to first, I would say that there are avenues, there are platforms, and I think it is also making sure that there is access to this platform, and that people are comfortable to go to these places, because Reach has many different places for dialogues and opportunities. Actually, your MPs, if you request of them and all that, maybe not necessarily in an MPS context, many of us actually very willing to come and sit and have conversations. So those are actually existing avenues and platforms. But I would say that I think because we are very exposed to how things are done elsewhere, we also get, I guess, inspired or influenced by how things are also presented. I actually had a dialogue with some students and people who were living in London. During my trip, they reached out to me, and one of the things we spoke about was this.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw the picture.
So I was very grateful for their inputs, and they were sharing things like they usually have like peaceful protests and all that, and so to them that's a manifestation. That's how they do it. So they cannot understand or cannot fathom. So I think one thing we need to really appreciate is that while we have platforms, we may not be able to accommodate all sorts of expression, because there are considerations we have for our country, and that sometimes people get very upset about, because they don't see why we need to be so paternalistic or too overprotective about it. But there's a whole history of this, right, that we just have to be cautious about. So that's another thing. I think we need to find new and meaningful ways. I think the Palestinian Scholarship Initiative, that you did, and I don't know whether this can show yet. These are all different modalities of constructive, of meaningful ways of expression, and we've seen that from our people. The way they have crafted things or shared stories, and I do appreciate that. But then we've got to be cognizant of some limitations of what we can and cannot do, and be also, I guess, in a way, meaningful in our actions because of the privileges we have here as Singaporeans. I think if we shut down and then don't reach out to people, or don't take care of ourselves, our family, when you're given the blessing to be here, to be in a time of peace, to do well in your life, I feel that that's also a disservice to ourselves and the larger Muslim community. So I think that's just my personal thoughts.
Yeah, so I definitely agree, and I want to be fair to the government as well. Two things, I think. Firstly, the government's ultimate moral responsibility is to its citizens. the ultimate moral responsibility. And secondly, in the past 1.5 years, I have seen more outlets, more space given to Palestinian activism. Even PM endorsed the scholarship. So I do appreciate all of that. But also, Madam, we are about the same age, about the same age. So we are about the same age. So we're at this age where maybe we can regulate our emotions better, and also because as I get older, also I feel like I become a bit more scared about things. I always, because there's more to lose or what. It's just a natural become conservative. But I can imagine, I were 20 years old now, right? I would have a very different temperament now when I see this, right? And I can't really blame my 20-year-old self, because I would be shocked if a 20-year-old doesn't feel anything about this. I'll be very worried for Singapore, right? If a 20-year-old looks at this, who cares, right? So it's that kind of how do we not alienate our young people, right? So our young people may not be able to write books, may not be able to do the scholarships, but they still want to be heard, right? So yes, there's reach and all of this. You mentioned the new and innovative ways. How else can we engage people? I saw someone posting that the government should do a town hall with just activists, like a meet the people session with activists only. Would those sorts of things, you think, fly? Or
I think they actually did arrange for a dialogue with the activists, with this actual intent to have that discussion. If I could be candid in my views in this,
please.
Firstly, I do appreciate that. I thank you for the feedback, and I think it is a good reminder that we were all young ones, and I mean, I felt differently when I was, and actually that's a constant prayer of mine, to not lose that sense of activism, of fire, of wanting to fight for a cause that's meaningful. So I do appreciate that. But it's also about growth and about learning about responsibility and learning about the correct decorum. So I think that's also something that we all went through. We do need to instill and guide and nurture people in the right direction, but without quelling that fire in them. I do appreciate that. That's important. What I do also want to candidly say is that intentions then must be right. Dialogue means a conversation where you and I can have different opinions and views, and we may end up agree to disagree, and macam cakap sini habis sini kind of thing, and then we can take back, of course, things that we've learned, we grow and build on it. I also see activism as a marathon, not a race. It is an ongoing effort to have people understand your perspective, and that needs thought, right? That needs strategy. You should not burn bridges. You should, if you come with the intent of just getting content for your social media platform and to discredit people who are working, and just so that people will think, oh, the MPs are all lousy, I wonder the motivations of that and the value of that to this whole cause. Because then it is really about just like anything you do, you're just looking for all the bad so that you can put up something that is sensationalized. And so that's where I have an issue with. But if you really truly care about it and you have conversations, and we can come to a point where, yes, I think you can do more, and I think okay, fine, then let's have iterations of that. Conversations cannot be once off, it has to be ongoing and it has to grow. So if you also cannot give up on the government and the people. I've always felt never say never. If you give up, if I gave up, it will never come to a point where we can have this conversation. So
100%.
So I mean that's where I come from.
I'm in complete agreement with that. And people have asked me, why you talk about decorum? It's overrated. Maybe, but also just like how sometimes I don't even. I don't wanna pretend like I've never asked government officials difficult questions or been difficult with them, right? But I try my best, not to be rude or anything. Not just for its own sake, right? But if you escalate, it will escalate, and then the polarization starts, I think, once certain norms are violated in society. So I am in complete agreement with that. So yeah, and I thank you also for your openness. You know, we need to find new ways to engage young people. I also, when Minister Shanmugam said that's the end of the story for the activists, that those two activists in that particular instance, I like that as well, because you know, then move on, and then we can think of other ways to engage. But I do hope that the government continues to engage even those two, but people who disagree with them, and maybe who are even less constructive, you know, but just give them an outlet to be heard. On engaging people who disagree with you, also I 100% agree. I would love to have people like Kelvin Cheng on, and understand also, and you mentioned algorithm, right? My algorithm is very different from my friend's algorithm yesterday, you know. Like some of my friends, they didn't even see some of the things that and so that reminds me, right? There's a whole other segment of Singapore that doesn't agree with me at all, or not even doesn't agree, doesn't know what I'm thinking. But I still need to reach out to them, whether I like it. Maybe they are not where I am, but if I want them to come to where I am, I need to go there and pull them with me, right? Instead of saying, oh, why are you not there with me?
So let's pull our, you know, we had a bit of an earlier conversation just now, and I wanted to repeat some of the points I said earlier, because this whole social media thing and all that is not new, right? Because we've had it since quite some years back. But especially post-pandemic, I really feel the wave of change as to how we interact. I think firstly, this awareness of this algorithm that really puts people in silos and sometimes entrench their views, so much so that when you eventually come out to actually discuss things, you are in very different spaces. The challenge also is that that's even if you try to come out. And some people don't do that anymore because there's such convenience in consuming in the online space. I'm having difficulties also having like physical dialogues, and people just, you know, wanting to well, not difficulties in the sense that
people don't want to come.
People are just commenting, right, on things online, but when we actually want to discuss things, it's not that straightforward. So I've been to dialogues where I can see that people are at different spaces, and it's so hard to undo that, you know, because your algorithm shapes you as a person. It gives you your worldview, and it's the truth for you.
What's the way forward? Because Palestine is just one. There will be many more of this throughout.
It's really about consuming widely, I think, and it's really about being open. The same thing I'm telling you, I'm also having to tell myself lah. And that's why I'm very grateful for platforms like this, because as a government, we also cannot assume that we are right, and we also have. That's why we have to consciously make that effort to reach out to different groups. I mean, PM during Ramadan, he really went all around to that effort to really reach out to different groups of people, because he sees that need to understand beyond just knowing from, you know, data points. So that is something that we need to consciously do. So I would just say, especially to young ones, interact with an open mind, and not just online, physically, and you know, be in spaces where you can then reach out to people who are different from you, because advocacy is about going to someone who doesn't have the same view. 100%.
100%. Advocacy is about trying to convince people who disagree with you. I think that is the essence of.
The essence of it also is all relationships.
You
come in with like guns blazing and all that.
You can't replace. This is why people, I think politicians who say we should just do online things, right? I think those are terrible politicians, right? Because you cannot replace the human interaction. Okay, so thank you for that. The next one is, I saw this on a pod, Yalabat, and NCMP Hazelpur says that the government only listens when they lose seats. So, MOS Rahayu, are you listening?
You feel I'm not?
You are. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I think the larger point she was making, I believe, in that podcast was the fact that there is power in people's votes. I think people have a right, and I agree with that. In fact, I think the government has said that people have that right. We've been given the mandate by people, and we don't take that lightly. The people choose who they want as leaders, and they exercise that voice during the vote. So it is very important, and I agree that that is something that people should appreciate and understand. But I would then kind of, I guess, challenge the suggestion that that the government or doesn't listen if they don't, if you don't vote against them, because I would say, I mean, the hours I spend at my work doing the things I do would come to naught if people think that I don't listen, because the whole point of me going for engagement, doing dialogues, reaching out to house visits and all that is to listen, is to find out what are the sentiments. And so I would say that that part is not true, in that you it's only because you vote otherwise that we listen, because we do listen regardless. In fact, now more than ever. I mean, you and I are about the same age. I've been an activist way before this as well. I was maybe activist is too strong a word. I don't know the description.
But you are. I think you were. I think you came from the Malay grassroots also. So yeah.
So I was. I used to go for dialogue. I used to go for discussions. And I mean, if I can be honest, I also felt that I was just getting standard answers, and it wasn't necessarily something that I felt really reflected my views. But now being in government, and firstly, just being backbencher, and after that becoming in government, I've actually seen that there is a lot of value in what people say. I mean, people give feedback and we've adjusted. And you've seen some of the things that we have done. We've evolved. I mean, even in the Palestinian issue.
Yeah, 100%.
Hearing feedback, we created platforms, 100%. We reached out for discussions.
I think if people only look from October, as in, if people only started knowing about Singapore's position vis-a-vis Israel and Palestine from October, then maybe they are unsatisfied, or they don't know that there's an evolution. But if you have looked at it over like 20, 30 years, then you see actually there are shifts. Of course, there's a limit to how much foreign policy can change for a small country. But I do think you're right. There has been an evolution.
There's a lot of things that we do that is not necessarily out there.
Yeah.
I've been on a trip with Min Vivian. I've been to Ramallah, and I've heard the things he says to both leadership. And hand on heart, I can say that there's genuine effort to do things meaningfully for the people.
One thing I think I mentioned in the episode with Zul as well, I appreciated the government bringing Gerald as well on that trip. Just as a show of national unity that this is or bipartisan, right? So I disagree with Hazel as well. I think you're right. The government does listen.
I agreed with her.
Yes, so I disagree. Same as well, right? So I disagree that the government doesn't listen. The government does listen, even when they don't lose seats. But would you say that the ultimate language that politicians understand is the vote? That is the ultimate endorsement or rejection of a government or a party? Would you say that?
Well, in a democracy, that is it, right? The vote decides the leadership. And of course, that is something that is important. But to say that is the, I feel it's a bit, it simplifies it too much. I think it's a bit too simplistic to just say then, you just vote. Because what does it encourage people to do? And I worry about that. Because what I want, I suppose, people would say, oh, the election, of course, this is what you see and all that. But the truth is, I think, to be truly a democracy that is successful, you've got to exercise your vote responsibly. And it's not, the suggestion is to, okay, you just have to do this too. I find that a little bit, it cannot be like a threatening and blackmail sort of situation. It has to be a meaningful, thought through exercise. I am a believer that people are entitled to vote however they want. And I often tell my activists this also. The day you feel PAP has not delivered, is not the party that has fulfilled its promises to people, is not the party that can keep this country stable and continue to take it through difficult times, then you should not vote for PAP if you don't feel that we can do the job. Because that's your responsibility to your country. You must vote for the right team. So exercise that vote responsibly, not because of, oh, I didn't get my summons, or my MP didn't. I feel that it's just it's a larger thing we have to look at. We are not perfect. We are constantly in that exercise of trying to be a better leader, trying to meet the needs of people. But we will also never be able to satiate everyone. we've got to make some judgment calls. We've never been a government that is populist, because we often think long term and we have to make really tough decisions sometimes, which people don't like. So I would really ask for, I guess, maturity in exercising their votes, and really, if you genuinely feel that, you know, in principle it's not something that you can accept, you know, the party, then so be it, because you are entitled to exercise that. But don't make that vote a game. So that's where I guess I take issue with the part about, okay, vote, like, you know, don't make it simplistic. It's a power you have.
Yeah.
It's a, you know, it's a privilege.
Power, privilege, responsibility.
Responsibility. So exercise it correctly. But however you choose to do it, I respect you. But don't think through it. Think through it and then make a decision.
Oh yeah, we're in agreement, because I think sometimes also people don't understand the gravity of the vote. And I think it's really important what is the message you choose to send with that, right? So I've saved the Malay Muslim issues to the end, right? Because I also find that sometimes it's very easy for Malay Muslim especially, but minority MPs in general, and yours, of course, you're a woman as well, to be pigeonholed into, when you're not a minister of state just for Muslims, right? You're a minister of state for Singapore, right? So which is why I wanted to discuss the national issues first. But at the same time, also you are still a Malay Muslim leader, so I've saved the questions for last. Is Singapore ready for a woman minister of Muslim affairs?
So there are many dimensions to your question. I just want to kind of unpack that a bit, because you say Malay Muslim woman minister of Muslim affairs. So Malay Muslim minister is one thing. Malay Muslim minister of Muslim affairs is another.
Right.
Because for me, I think beyond just you know, representation or all that, you really need a capable team. You really need a capable person. You need and you need to make sure that society can coalesce around that decision of that leadership. So I think it depends on the state of affairs. You need to have, if there's someone that's capable to fill that role, I hope for that day where, you know, it doesn't matter what gender, and that person can fill the role. But there exists, I believe, also different views about women leadership, especially in Islam. And I think that's something that we do need to continue to edify, sensitize, and talk about before any decisions are made in that front. So I would say that it really depends. Time, place, whether you have the right person for it.
It's a well-reasoned answer, but it's a very boring answer.
What do you want me to say, actually?
I want viral content. I want to say, yes, I am ready to be minister.
Me? So you're asking me?
Yes.
I think, you know, I pray for the day that there is representation of a woman. But it may be me, it may not be me. We are bringing in a lot of new people. You know, there may be someone better. I'm not fixated to the role. I actually think that it's important to get someone who can really do the job well. So, hari baik bulan baik ni kan, kita doakan that there is
so on this good day, we pray for a good outcome. So if PM Wong says to you after the elections, which is in what, May, is it? Or
you do this to everyone, huh? I keep telling you, I gave up, like saying I don't know. Say, yeah, I think it's May.
So if he offered you, he say, okay, I think you should be a minister, you won't say no, right?
I don't like hypotheticals. I've not addressed my mind to it, so I would tap out from answering that question.
Okay. Fair enough. So, do you find it annoying sometimes that there's more expectations on you? Even last week, somebody asked me, hey, you're having this conversation actually took place. So somebody asked me, you're having Rahayu on next week. I said, yeah. Then she said, you know, I felt that she had to give up so much, you know, to be MOS. I said, oh yeah, what do you mean? You know, time with family and all. And then my response to this person, a woman, don't you think that sex is like that? You may not think it, right? But you never say that about a male minister, like this person has to give up so much, which everybody has to give up so much. So do you find this annoying, though? Do you find it annoying or a responsibility, or both, that you're always pigeonholed as a Malay, as a woman? And because, okay, I find it like, and I'm not at your level, of course, right? I don't have that same levels of responsibility, but I find it sometimes it's a responsibility. Sometimes I find an annoyance. Like, you know, when the two activist incidents, for instance, I thought, why did this become a Malay Muslim issue? Like, there was a third activist who was not Malay, but somehow, like, especially one media outlet framed it as a Malay Muslim issue when it wasn't. At the same time, sometimes I do feel that if you are from the community, you are able, on other issues, you are able to. How do you feel? I'm torn. Yeah.
I appreciate that sentiment, and I do, in some respect, resonate with that there is different feelings I have in different circumstances. I think also, as a Malay Muslim woman, especially one wearing tudung, I kind of like, that's why also for those ladies, it becomes very stark, you know, that representation of the community. And I do take that very seriously. It's something that I'm very conscious about, that I walk around sort of being responsible for the community as well.
Is that fair, though?
So I think it depends on how you see it, because you know, I have conversations with my husband sometimes, and there are moments where I'm generally actually quite an introvert, and especially early days, you know, when I joined, I'm like, I didn't know where to speak or whether it's appropriate, and he would always remind me, you have a seat at the table, and it's an amanah to present views and perspectives. So at one level, it may seem like a burden, but if I had chosen this, then it must be something that I must carry through as best as I can, and that's something I'm very conscious about. Like, I must represent views of my community. I must try and, you know, where I can and where the circumstances are necessary for me to uplift my community, help them along in that journey, I do feel that sense of responsibility quite strongly. I don't see it as it being unfair, because I embrace who I am, and I'm very proud of being a Malay Muslim woman. And actually, I also feel that because I'm Malay Muslim pakai tudung, that I am given the opportunities to represent in different platforms, and to me that's a gift, because optically, you know, sometimes it's really just good to have me. I am, you know, given opportunities to be part of a team, and I'm tasked with certain specific things that I suppose only I can do. I see it actually as a privilege and an honor, and I hope many more come, so that I don't have to bear this load alone. I pray for also support, understanding, and rallying from the community, so that this doesn't feel lonely and painful. Because if I think,
does it feel lonely and painful?
Sometimes because people don't understand why we do the things we do, and how challenging our day can be when we enter into a certain space, you know. So it does sometimes feel that it pulls you down. It takes away, especially if you get online hate comments. So I am very, very sensitive to that kind of things. People would think that, you know, you say comments, nothing. I mean, that's part of your job, right? But we all are humans, you know. You get cited and all that. So I do get affected by that. So
why do you still read?
I know, my friends always sometimes when something happens, they say, don't read your comments. And when they do that, I will read it. So I just put myself through pain for nothing. I think for me, it's also about just, I don't want to not know.
Yeah, fair enough.
So for me, it's really about just understanding what perspectives are, and that shapes sort of how I respond to things. But because of that, you know, with regards to the two ladies who, my biggest worry and the thing that I was most upset about was also the toxicity that came after that. The vitriolic comments, because it's like, that's not what we are here for. We call it out because it's not right.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
then if you're going to do that, then it's also not right.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
And I wouldn't wish that for anyone
Yeah,
because
agreed.
it's actually this cyberbullying and comments. Right? People really should refrain from. I think it's okay to give comments that are meaningful, but sometimes people just go off.
100%. Yeah,
and
I
that
thought.
is something
Even if they did something wrong, and I think they could have done things better, like the unnecessary vitriol that they received. Would you be open? Let's say the two of them wanted to meet up with you, or you would. Thank you for that. So yeah, back to the issue, right? So you mentioned this responsibility, right? Amanah, MOS said responsibility being sometimes. A few days ago, I was on a podcast, and before we started, the host just said, "Oh, you are our DEI person today," and I said, "Give me any DEI position, man." Like, then she got a bit stumped that was my response. Said, "Huh, really?" They said, "Yeah, just give me a position, like give me a seat at the table, I'll take it. I don't care why you want me there. I just want a seat at the table, and the moment I get it is how I use it, right?" So, but at the same time, do people reduce you to these identities? So you said, and I'm glad you embrace them. But do people, especially the GRC system, right? So do people look at you? Oh, you are there because you're a Malay, or what? Has that ever happened to you, or do you think that happened at the start, but once you prove yourself, that didn't happen? How does it
so
work?
maybe more the latter.
Yeah.
I think it's very natural for people to make assumptions like that, and I also know that sometimes I am put because I'm the Malay, like duh, right? But then, given the position, like you say, that's where the work starts, and I am so conscious that I cannot just be that tudung face in the team because, and I sometimes, that's why I guess we all feel the pressure of sometimes overcompensating to just make sure that people know that we're not just here because we are minority representation, that we can actually do the job, that we can actually contribute to the team, and in a meaningful manner, but not say things just for the sake of saying it, but really just bring something to the table. And I'm still finding my way in that, but I am very, very conscious that I don't take that for granted. So I mean, when I gave birth, that was also one thing in my mind, because I think people are very kind. They really know and see that sometimes for women, we have to be taken out of our comfortable spaces to do this work, and sexist as it may, it is the reality of the life, right? So when I came back from my actually I took like all of 3 weeks of maternity, or 4 weeks, because I was so conscious that people would think that now that she has a child, she cannot do her job. So I made sure I went for my market visits and all that. I ramped up on activities because someone had asked one of my close grassroots leaders, especially because my child is special needs, so now that she's got a child special, what will happen? Then the person said, what happened? She continued working, and I was so determined to show it. To the extent I may have shortchanged my son, actually, because I just really wanted to prove that I could do the job. And it's not easy finding that balance, really. It's tough because I do have a real family. I have a husband, I have a son, and I have commitments. I'm learning to find that space, and I think it's true for my male colleagues now, because I think they also too feel the pain of not being with their children, their families, and all of us, I think, when we do this job, got to find that balance for ourselves, because only if we are balanced and we take care of ourselves, that we can do a proper job, right? Yeah. But really, I think the original point about trying to make sure that you're not just a representative is just so true for me, and I'm sure for you too.
Okay, thank you for that. It's really, I think, I don't know whether I've seen you this vulnerable, which is a good thing, which is a great thing, right? And I wanted to ask so it's great, and I think a lot of us do that, right? And for you, especially as a woman, you wanted to come back 1 month, so 3 months earlier than what you are supposed to, right? But do you think that sets a high bar for ordinary. So then people say, oh, if Rahayu can do it, why can't you do it?
So I am conscious of that too. So in that same breath, right, that same day, same period that I went, one lady actually came up to me and said, hey, what are you doing? You just gave birth. What message are you sending?
Oh,
you know.
okay.
So I was like, you also
That if you do,
yeah. So I was like,
Yeah,
I was really, I struggle with that. But I'm very, very conscious that every one of us are in different circumstances, and I think what I seek to do is to hopefully set new narratives for our community where people see us as meaningful contributors to the larger society, willing to work hard, you know, and that was something I'm conscious about. But at the same time, I do feel that we all have to calibrate according to our own abilities and our own, I guess, vision and objective of how we want to pursue this. I don't intend to impose this on anyone, and I don't think that's fair, because everyone is different and we all have our own challenges, and I think we've got to embrace our own situation and work towards that. I mean, same way when I looked up to Madam Halimah, I had big shoes to fill, right? But I've also figured that I've got to walk my own way, and within my own limitations, try and come up with something that's meaningful. So I think we should be circumspect in when we do that, because everyone has a different setup, different support, different tanggungjawab and roles, right? And so that's one. And we shouldn't judge others. And so the last thing I'd do for women is to judge. They want to breastfeed, they don't want to breastfeed, it's up to them. They want to work, don't want to work, it's also up to them. But they then need to figure out what their circumstances will be. So in my advocacy for women, women's rights and their participation in the community, I've been very conscious to make sure that it's non-judgmental and that it actually accepts the fact that we are all with different backgrounds and different desires and aspirations.
Right. Thank you. It does sound to me, even though I know you don't want to say it, it's much harder being a woman MP than a Malay woman MP, a hijab wearing Malay woman MP. So you have all the all the boxes ticked, right? But thank you, and I think you do a pretty good job at representing. Yeah, not really. So, what would be a final question? Let's end on this. What would be a good result? Like, no boring answer. Voters have chosen, or whatever. What would be a good election result?
For me personally,
for the party and for you personally, both. Like,
well, firstly, assuming that I'm running, of course the good result will be.
You are running. She is.
Of course, if we win, then.
But you will win, right? So what's a good number? I know you'll say we cannot assume, but what is the target? 60% nationally, or is it to better the previous one? Or?
We've never been about the numbers, honestly, but having something that is close, for me, this is just a personal one, I wouldn't want to impose it on the team or whatever. Something that reflects closely to our results of the past would be a good affirmation. But I'm very realistic that society has changed. I mean, you spoke of previously of the anti-establishment mood and how people are just really consuming differently. So I'm realistic that is possibly unachievable. But I think something that reflects strong affirmation of the work that we have done and belief in us is something that is good for me. Whether people will give that or not, that's them, right? But that is something I want to work towards. So every day it's really not a race, it's a marathon. It's been work that we've done in the past, but how do we continue to sustain it and convey to people that this is something that we will continue to deliver? That is the key thing to do now, and hopefully through those efforts, people believe and support us.
I'm glad you stuck your neck out there. You say you want to reach the previous election numbers, but that was with Tharman, right? So you think it's still?
No, I actually, to be honest, I don't think it's doable. because I've said that.
But that's your
times have
target,
changed.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have to work towards something.
Right.
You've got to kind of reach for the sky, right, and hopefully fall amongst the stars or something like that. So it's that kind of approach that I'm taking. I think we've got to work very, very hard to try and cover all ground, but the results then is something that hopefully reflects that effort.
Okay. MOS, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you so much. And can you make me one promise that when you become a minister, you'll come back on? She laughed, but she doesn't want to commit. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye. You can stop.